Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to do a quick recap here of the Pacific Division. We're going to look at what the Pacific Division has done over the first 3 days of free agency and which teams have improved or got worse over the first few days of free agency for those few teams. We'll do all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Indian Talkie channel. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. We're never able to without you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. And don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so you can also listen to this video. Now, sorry for the delay of videos. I took a day off yesterday just to sort of rest and recuperate because after having the draft and free agency so close together, it was just extremely hard this year, especially with how late the Stanley Cup final went. So I'm hopefully going to get back into the rhythm of things over the next little while. So we're going to start today off by looking at what happened for each team over the first 3 days of free agency, at least at this point in time as we're recording these videos, and see which teams have improved or have gotten worse over the first few days of free agency. So we're going to look at just the Pacific Division here today. I'm going to have future videos talking about the Central, the Metro, and the Atlantic as well, but today and in this video I'm just going to look at the Pacific. So we'll start with the Anaheim Ducks. They've made a couple of interesting moves over the first day of free agency. So June 30th, I'll also include some of the signings from June 30th as well. So June 30th, they extended RFA forward Isaac Lundestrom on a one-year deal with AV of $1.5 million. Pretty good middle-six forward, so it's a solid signing there for the Ducks. Then on July 1st, they made two signings, extending Brett Liason and Urho Vakanainen, who they didn't extend qualifying offers to. Liason 1 year at $1.05 million, Vakanainen 1 year at $1.1 million, so that's pretty good deals there. Both are really good players. Liason a good bottom six forward, Vakanainen a good third pair defenseman. Then they signed yesterday Jansen Harkins, 2-year extension with AAV of $788,000. Harkins can be a solid 13th, 14th forward for a team, especially on the Ducks team, so that's a pretty good pickup there. And then the Ducks also signed former Jacket Carson Mayer, who's got a 1-year league minimum deal, is a guy who can definitely be called upon if need be, so that's a pretty good pickup there for the Ducks. And they also made one small trade, acquiring Brian Dumoulin from the Seattle Kraken in exchange for a 2026 4th-round pick. So for the Ducks, I'm not overly in love with what they did this offseason. Sure, they had some more depth. They got some guys back who were on expiring deals with guys like Liason, Vakanainen, Lundstrom. They had some more depth in the forward group with guys like Mayer, Harkins. They got a solid third pair defenseman in Dumoulin. So I don't think they've had an atrocious offseason, but given the fact that the Ducks came into this offseason and a lot of emphasis was put on them adding a top six forward, adding a top four defenseman, at least the fact that they haven't done it yet really is worrisome to me. So I don't think they've had the greatest of off seasons, but I don't think they've had the worst of them either. So interesting stuff there for Anaheim. For Calgary, they've made a couple of signings. July 1st, they wound up signing 6 players. First, they signed Anthony Mantha, 1-year deal, $3.5 million, solid middle six forward, power type forward, and a bigger role with Calgary. I think he could do really well. They signed Devin Cooley, 2-year deal, league minimum, to be a third stringer. Now with Markstrom gone and with sounds like Vladar being injured to start the season, they needed a backup goaltender. Cooley showed last year and sounds like he can do that. A serviceable role for a little bit of time, so they get Cooley. The Flames also get Jake Bean. We know that their defense is not what it once was, so he gets a 2-year deal with AV of $1.75 million. Should be a solid second, third pair defenseman there. They get Martin Ferk, gets a 1-year league minimum deal, solid depth forward, could be a call-up option. They get Ryan Lomberg, 2-year deal, $2 million AAV. That's a pretty good deal in my opinion for the Flames. Lomberg showed he can be a really good bomb six forward, so that could be a really good addition. And then they also extended Igor Sharangovich. He was entering the final year of his deal, gets a 5-year extension with AV $5.75 million, coming off a career season. I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Flames. Then yesterday we saw the Flames sign Jonathan Espiriot, 1-year league minimum deal, depth defenseman, could be a call-up option. And then today we saw them sign Justin Kirkland. He's a winger, once again 1-year deal, league minimum, solid call-up option. So some interesting stuff there for the Flames. They made no trades over that time frame, so some interesting stuff there. I mean, the Sharangovich extension is fantastic for them. They do have some decent pieces, like Bean could be easily a solid third pair, if not second pair defenseman. Mantha could be a really good middle six forward. Lomberg's a solid bottom six forward. So they made some decent additions, but given how much they subtracted over the past year with Hanifin, Zadorov, Tanev, Lindholm, Toffoli, Markstrom this year, as well as Mangiapane, I think they're definitely in a situation where they're going to step back. So I don't think they had a bad free agency, but I do think that this team's going to take a step back this year. They didn't really replace all the stuff that they've lost, so I think this team's going to take a step back next year, but a decent free agency period. The Edmonton Oilers have made a plethora of signings signings. They only signed players on July 1st, but they made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 signings on the July 1st, so we'll get to all of those here. So let's start with some of the lower end guys. They signed James Hamblin to a 2-year extension with AV of $125,000. He was an RFA. They also signed RFA Hoffenheimer to a 1-year deal with AV of league minimum. Noah Phillip to a 1-year deal with a league minimum AAV. So those were some of the lower end signings they made that day. Those guys were all the guys who were in their organization already. They wound up keeping. They also got Colin Delia, who's a decent third stringer with Campbell now not in there. They needed a third stringer. He gets a 1-year league minimum deal. Should be pretty good there for them. They also signed Connor Carrick, 1-year league minimum. Not too bad there. I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Oilers. Stetcher, who they acquired at deadline, signs on a 2-year deal with AV of $788,000. Should be a solid 7th defenseman for that team, so that's pretty good there. They also signed some other players. They wound up bringing back Matthias Janmark, 3-year deal, $1.45 million. They brought back Corey Perry, 1 year, $1.15 million. Some bonuses are in there too. They brought back Connor Brown, 1 year, $1 million deal. They brought back Adam Henrique, 2-year, the $3 million AAV deal. So they brought back most of their depth that they were able to have from last year. They also signed Josh Brown, who came over from Utah, 3-year deal, $1 million AAV, just like Stechik, be a solid 7th defenseman. So they add some pretty good pieces there. The two big signings that weren't just keeping players around or signing depth players were Vic Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner. Arvidsson gets a 2-year extension with the AAV of $4 million. Skinner gets a 1-year deal with $3 million AAV. Skinner's coming off a pretty decent season, can put up 30 to 40 points. Arvidsson is coming off an injury-riddled season, but can still put up around 20 to 30 goals. So this is a pretty good pickup there for the Oilers. I mean, they add some more depth to the forward group with guys like Skinner and Arvidsson. They keep Perry, Janmark, Brown, Henrique around, so that's pretty good moves there for the Oilers. They also wind up adding guys like Josh Brown and Troy Stecher to add some depth on the defensive end. So all in all, not a bad offseason there for the Oilers. I think they definitely got a little bit better than even last year. And the forward group looks a little bit better. Their defense still is a little bit of a question mark, but still, I think that forward group looks a little bit better. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Oilers start off a lot better this year. So I think the Oilers had a pretty good free agency period. The LA Kings also made only signings on July 1st, signing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. Most of them were depth players. We'll get to all those here. They signed Jeff Malott, 2-year deal, league minimum, depth player, could be a call-up option. They re-signed Tyler Madden after not qualifying him, 1-year league minimum deal. They signed Jack Stanichka, who wasn't qualified by San Jose, 1-year league minimum deal. They signed Riley Walsh, who wasn't qualified by Boston, who was a defenseman, 1-year league minimum deal. And they signed Glenn Godden, who was a UFA from Anaheim, 2-year deal, league minimum. So some interesting stuff there, but Malott, Godden, Stanichka, Madden are all going to be AHL players who are going to be call-up options. Walsh is a decent player who could, I think, be a solid 6th, 7th defenseman, but still most likely going to play in the AHL. They brought back Trevor Lewis on a 1-year, $800,000 deal. He should be a solid bottom 6 forward. They brought back Phoenix Copley, 1-year, $825,000. He should fight with David Riddick in training camp for the backup role, so that's a pretty good move there for the Kings. And the two big signings were Joel Edmundson and Warren Foegele. After losing Vic Arvidsson, they needed someone to replace him, so they sent Foegele to a 3-year deal with AV of $3.5 million. Pretty good. Foegele had a really good playoff, so I could see that be a really good pickup there for the Kings. And then they also add Edmundson after losing Matt Roy in free agency, sent him to a 4-year deal with AV of $3.85 million. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Kings to sign Joel Edmundson. So pretty good pickups there for the Kings. Like I said, not overly great. I'm not sure if they've really improved much. Is Foegele and Edmundson better than Roy and Arvidsson? I'm not exactly sure, but they do have a better goaltending duo now with Kemper and whoever they have as Riddick or Copley as their backup. Their defense still looks pretty good, and they still have a lot of really good young talent they could add to the forward group to sort of fill holes. So all in all, I think the Kings had a decent offseason. I'm definitely not going to say they were some of the winners of this offseason, but I do think they definitely had a decent offseason, adding some of these players that they did. So some pretty good signings there for the Kings on free agency day. Next, going over to the San Jose Sharks, they made a couple of signings on June 30th. We talked about this in one of our previous videos. Signed Justin Bailey, 1-year league minimum, solid bottom 6 forward, could be a solid 13th, 14th forward. Luke Cunnin, 1 year, $2.75 million. He's going to be UFA at the end of the year. Could be a solid middle 6 forward for the time being, and then should be a trade ship. But then we also saw him sign 4 players on July 1st. It's 2 lower end players were a couple of depth defensemen. They signed Lucas Carlson to a 2-year deal with AV of $800,000. Could be a solid third pair defenseman if called upon. He also has Jimmy Sheldet, who gets a 1-year league minimum deal. AHL player, could be a call-up option. So interesting stuff there for Sharks. But they also made 2 big splashes. They got Alex Wennberg on a 2-year deal with AV of $5 million. And they got Tyler Toffoli on a 4-year deal with AV of $6 million. So interesting stuff there for the Sharks. I mean, They had to overpay to get these guys, but Wennberg and Toffoli I think could be really good additions. Wennberg should be a solid second, third line center for that team. Toffoli should be a solid top six winger. So they definitely had some more offense by adding Wennberg and Toffoli, but once again, this team's still not going to be overly great. So I don't think they've improved an awful lot, but they definitely did improve a little bit by adding Wennberg and Toffoli. Going over to the Seattle Kraken. They made a couple of moves, like we talked about in one of our previous videos. Signed 4 depth players on June 30th. McCormick, 2-year deal with a view of $775. And then they also signed Steska, Henman, and Hayden, also 1-year deals with a view of $775. So interesting stuff there. They made 7 signings on free agency day. They signed Mitchell Stevens, who was a depth player playing in Montreal this past year, to a 2-year deal with a view of $175,000. Should be a solid bottom 6 forward, maybe a call-up option. They also signed Brandon Bureau to a 1-year league minimum deal, should be a call-up option. Lejoie, 1-year deal, league minimum, should be a call-up option. Ben Mayers, who can actually be a solid bottom 6 forward, to a 1-year league minimum deal. And they also signed Nicholas Broulard to a 1-year league minimum deal. So they add some depth by getting guys like Broulard on the defensive end and Lejoie, and they also get Myers, Bureau, and Stevens in the forward group. So they had some more depth pieces, but they made 2 significant signings, bringing in Brandon Montour, who was one of the top defensive players, to a 7-year deal with a view of $7.14 million. Should be a solid top pair defenseman, potentially even with a guy like Vince Dunn. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Kraken. And they also signed Chandler Stephenson, who's a center left winger, 7-year deal, $6.25 million AAV. He looks pretty good. I think eventually Stephenson should be a solid middle 6 winger there, maybe even top 6 winger for the Kraken, especially being paid that money. So interesting stuff there. The Kraken definitely made some more improvements. I think they got themselves a little bit better than last year. You go over to the Vancouver Canucks. They didn't make an overabundance of moves over the past little while, but they definitely did make some moves. The Canucks, like we said on the 30th, signed Jet Wu, 1-year league minimum deal, not too surprised there. And then on top of that, the Canucks have signed a handful of players. On July 1st, they signed Nathan Smith, a 1-year league minimum deal, not too surprised there. Solid depth addition. They signed Yuri Patera, 2-year deal, league minimum, should be their new third stringer. They signed Kiefer Sherwood, who was in Nashville, on a 2-year deal with AV of $1.5 million. Solid bottom 6 forward, could see him play on the 4th line. They signed Vinny Desharnais, who left Edmonton, 2-year deal with AV of $2 million. Third pair right shot defenseman, should be a really good piece there to sort of help replace the loss of a guy like Nikita Zadorov. Also signed Derek Forward, who's a left side defenseman, also can play on the third pair, 1-year, $1.5 million deal. Should be a decent addition there for the Canucks. They also signed Danton Heinen, 2-year deal with AV of $2.25 million. Should be a very versatile third, maybe second line winger. Should be a guy who can really fill in some holes. That's a pretty good pickup there for the Canucks. And they also signed their big addition, which is Jake DeBrusk, a 7-year deal with AV of $5.5 million. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Canucks. DeBrusk coming off a pretty good season with Boston, I think could really work out well as a solid top 6 winger there for Pettersson. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Canucks. Definitely had a decent offseason, not a great one with guys like Lindholm and Zadorov leaving, but a decent one nonetheless. And then we saw the Golden Knights make some moves, very depth additions there. They brought back Kane Korczak and Pavel Dorofeev for RFAs. Korczak gets a 2-year deal with AV of $825,000. Dorofeev also gets a 2-year deal with both AV of $1.835 million. So interesting stuff there. They signed Legzinski and Aston Reese, who are depth forwards. Legzinski, 2 years league minimum. Aston Reese, 1-year league minimum. So some interesting moves there for the Golden Knights. They brought in a backup for Aiden Hill and Ilya Samsonov, signed him to a 1-year deal with AV of $1.8 million. Hopefully, in the backup role, should be a little bit better there in Vegas. And then yesterday, they also signed Victor Olofsson, a 1-year deal with an AV of $1.075 million. So not overly expensive. And Olofsson in a third pair role could easily put up 20 goals in Vegas. So in my opinion, not a bad off season from Vegas, but definitely did not go after any of the big pieces. And also just forgot to remember, but on Seattle's thing, they also moved Brian Dumoulin to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a 2026 4th round pick. With the addition of Montour, they had too many blue liners, so they moved Dumoulin to Anaheim. So all in all, I think these teams had some pretty good free agencies. So just to recap, I think the Sharks are a little bit better by adding Wennberg and Toffoli, even though I think they're still going to be a bottom dweller to miss the playoffs. I do think they had some pretty good moves there in free agency. For the Ducks, I'm quite surprised they haven't added a top 6 forward or a top 4D yet. They still have a plethora of cap space to work with, so I do wonder if we still see a move from them, but I've been a little bit disappointed with the Ducks so far. If you look at the Flames, I think they did what they could, add some more players to sort of help round out that roster, guys like Mantha, Bean, Lomberg to sort of help around the roster, but with all the subtractions they made over the past year, I do think they'll probably be a team who winds up missing the playoffs. The Kraken, I like what they've done this offseason, adding Montour, adding a guy like Stephenson. I know Stephenson's a little bit too high on this AAV, but still, I like those two additions. Stephenson's going to produce some offense on that forward group. Montour's going to be a really good offensive defenseman in the top four, so I really do like what Seattle's done. I think they could have even catapulted themselves back into a playoff spot. The Kings, I'm not going to say I all really like what they did. They let Matt Roy go, they let Vegard Arvidsson go. Those were two solid players, a top six forward and a top four defenseman. Replaced them with Edmundson, who's more of a third pair defenseman, and Foegele, who's more of a top nine forward. So I do think they got a little bit worse this offseason, but I do think with the addition of Kemper and with the other things, they could easily still remain in a playoff spot next year. I do like what the Canucks did. Like I said, losing Lindholm, losing Zadorov, they're not going to be as good as they were last year, but I do think with the additions of a guy like Jake DeBrusk and some defensive help with guys like Desharnais and Forbert, I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Canucks. So I do think they got a little bit worse, but I'm not sure if they'll fall out of the playoffs. I do think the Oilers got a ton better, getting Skinner, getting Arvidsson, getting some defensive help and guys like Brown and Stetcher. I do think that the Oilers did some really good things this offseason so far, and I do like what they've done. Meanwhile, for the Vegas Golden Knights, a little bit confusing. They usually make big splashes, so the fact that we haven't seen a big splash of that does make me wonder if we do see maybe some more movement there from Vegas in the not too distant future. But adding Olofsson's going to be a good third line winger. Adding a guy like Samsonov should be a really good backup, but given the fact they lost guys like Marshall and Stephenson, I do think that the Knights did decrease a little bit. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they were a wildcard team this year, but still, I do think they might make the playoffs, but I'm not sure exactly how good they'll do this year if they don't make any more moves. So we'll have to wait and see, but definitely, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think about the Pacific Division down in the comment section below. Do you think Seattle's improved? Do you think San Jose's improved? Do you think Edmonton's improved? What do you think about Calgary, Vancouver, or Vegas? Do you think they've improved? Do you think they've decreased? Do you think they could be making some more moves? What about Anaheim? Do you think the Ducks could be making some more moves? Definitely love to hear your thoughts on what do you think of the Pacific Division so far down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk for today. Or to like this video, really like to subscribe down below. Thank you for your support when you're able to with you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so I'll discuss today's video. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. Leave a link in the description below. I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.